Soul Scripts presents Conversations with Your Higher Self, and we have a special edition here today on spiritual entities and psychic protection. Today we have Xane Daniel. He teaches people how to remove negative entities and attachments from themselves. Hello and welcome, Xane. I appreciate you being here.
Amazing to be here. It's wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for having me.
You bet, you bet. Well, let's start because I like to do the basics for people that just might be finding us and new to this whole awakening world that we are living in. Yes. Give me your definition of entity versus psychic attack versus negative attachments, if there is any delineation between the three.
You know, I think this is an opportunity for me to say, I don't care, because it really doesn't matter. Like we really focus too much on those sorts of details. We really focus on defining what this is and what that is and what that is. That's the primitive human 3D brain that's trying to categorize things and make themselves feel comfortable. You're just seeking comfort when you're trying to categorize all that stuff. I'm not interested in that. Are you suffering? Yes, no. If the answer is yes, and you believe that it's one of those things, if not, and many, many other different types of things, even depression and PTSD, then there's a process that we can use to completely take care of that. And it's all about teaching you how to take care of that, whether it's a negative entity attachment or a curse or a psychic attack or whatever. The main thing that we're doing is we're helping you step into your power, helping you not be afraid of whatever it is, helping you understand your spiritual gifts, helping you discover really how to get over your childhood traumas and blockages and all the different things like that. All of that interplays together to create the situation where you are essentially susceptible to any one of those types of things.
Wow, I really like that approach. That makes complete sense. So tell me, like, okay, say I come to you and I'm like, Xane, I feel like there's this entity following me around. I'm not myself. I'm sick all the time. I'm tired, blah, blah, blah. Would you take the standpoint of attacking maybe past trauma or something like that? Is there really a physical being, or not physical being, spiritual being that's attached itself to me? Or help me figure that out.
Right. So so it's a long process. Like it's very interesting because I help people out on the spot. So in your particular imaginary situation, you don't actually have one. So I'm not pulling information in to say, oh, I know what's going on with you, and here's here and here, right? That's happening quite a bit when I'm working with individuals. But in a general sense, yeah, it is all about you. It's not about the entities. It's not about the curses. It's not about the attacks. It's about you. It's about where you vibrate. It's about what you have been experiencing throughout your life. Are you in a really negative situation at work or in a relationship? Have you had a past experience when you were a child where you abused sexually, physically, verbally, or a past life experience? Though generally it turns out that it's this life that really matters in those cases. Every once in a while we get somebody who's carrying something generationally, that's the word. or past life. So, you know, but most of the time it's all about where you're at right now. And some people will even say, well, I vibrate very high, I do this and do that. And what we usually find is, no, there's actually something that you're not aware of that's lowering that frequency and making you a vibrational frequency match for a negative entity for any of these situations. So it's really all about bringing you up out of that. And so people will go to others. They'll go to a exorcist, or they'll go to a shaman or another light worker to have the negative entity removed. And they do a great job. There's nothing wrong with those people. They're amazing, right? And they're very powerful, and it works. But a lot of times it only works for a week or a day or even just a couple of hours. And then they're right back in that situation because they haven't done the work that they need to do to make it so that the entity or the situation doesn't come right back. So that's what I've discovered, is that this happens all the time. And some people spend tens and $50,000 going to all these different shaman and light workers and all this, only to have the same exact problem. And then when we have them work on them instead of on the entity, then, oh wow, amazing things happen.
Wow, that makes complete sense. Have you ever seen any spiritual folks in the spiritual community have attachments to them? I suppose they could, because if they haven't healed trauma, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it happens all the time. And in those situations, they sometimes come to my program and they come in like, well, I don't know how this is going to actually help me at all, because I've done all this work and I've done all that work. And, they come in kind of resistant because they have legitimately, they've put a lot of work in, but there's always something else, that's something that they haven't dived into yet. They didn't even realize that they were experiencing, or they've actually kind of shuttered it away and said, I don't think I'll have to deal with that. I'll be fine. And then those sorts of situations come up.
Now, do you think they can still be effective in helping people during the awakening process?
Most certainly.
Okay.
Oh yeah. But you know what? They'll be more effective afterwards. So, we'll say, I'll have people that are exhausted. They'll say, oh, okay, I worked on my 2 people today and I can't do a third because I'm just completely wiped. Well, okay, so what's going on there? There's something that it isn't quite right? Like maybe you're not pulling from the unlimited energy resources of the universe. Maybe you're pulling from your own reserves when you're doing your work. Maybe you have a negative entity or a negative situation going on. And so that's going to actually, get in the way of you being able to have all that energy for others.
Now, can people throw curses onto other people? Like, is that a thing where somebody curses you and puts an attachment on you? Or is that still going back to the work you need to do on yourself?
I'm sorry, I started getting a call from somebody while we were talking, and so I got distracted. Could you ask that question again for me?
Well, could somebody put a curse on you?
Yes, but only if you're ready for it. Only if you're you're going to be a vibrational match to it.
Okay.
So, that's really what it comes down to. It's about you. It's not about the external thing. It's the 3D world that we believe that we have to go to a doctor in order to be healed, that we have to go to church in order to hear the word of God, or whatever that you decide that you have to go to someone else for. You are a sovereign, powerful being, and you can heal yourself and you can talk to God yourself. You don't have to go to anybody else for any of this stuff once you realize that.
Beautiful. Makes sense. So I've also heard that, okay, we're in the 3D world right now, you sitting here working towards 5D. And I heard this in-between spot of 4D is kind of like a place where some of these entities like to live. Can you speak to that at all?
I don't necessarily see that as much, but what we are noticing is that our society is actually already moving from 3 to 4D, and you see this evidenced in things like Uber or things like Airbnb. Because if you think about the 3D experience is you have to go to the big corporation or to whoever to go to get your taxi or to go to your big hotel or that sort of thing, right? Whereas now we're putting the power in the people's hands. They can rent their room or their cottage, or they can take their own car and drive around and pick people up. This is a 4D construct. And so a 5D construct, of course, now is you don't need anybody. You can just completely do everything on your own. And so we're in that transitionary period. We are also seeing a big influx in negative entity attachments. And I have a couple of theories as to that. And I don't think it correlates to our 4D society. It correlates to our awakening. So I'm sure you know all about soul contracts. So if you were to say, okay, I want to be a human on this planet, and I'm going to bring with me these spiritual gifts, and I want to be at this stage, at this point, and in 2022, I want to be helping, healing, doing, whatever my mission is. And let's say that you get to 2020 and you've got this all pre-planned, right? You get to 2020 and, oh, okay, I'm still not doing the thing that I need to do. I'm still not discovering my gifts. I'm all wrapped up in the reality of this world, survival concerns and making enough money or making someone happy or whatever they're wrapped up in. You say, okay, what catalyst do I want to help awaken me? Do I want it to be a near-death experience? Do I want it to be a plant medicine experience? Oh, hey, there's this negative entity attachment thing that seems nice, I'll do that one, right? And so you select that on your chart, on your soul contract, and you come into this world and you're like, WTF, like, why am I getting attacked by these negative entity attachments? This is ridiculous. Why me? And you go into victim mode. But then you come to see somebody like me and we take care of all of that. We get rid of victim mode, we get rid of it all, and we discover that you have incredible spiritual gifts. It's why you're here. And this was a catalyst. So thank goodness you had the negative entity attachment that drove you to this decision.
Interesting. So what's part of the increase that you're seeing? What's causing that? Is it just the soul contracts or is other stuff
right?
Going on?
Because we are in the period of awakening. Right. So we have really begun the process. We're really seeing a lot of people wake up, and we could look at the pandemic and go, oh my gosh, the stupid pandemic, it was terrible. Well, we're not going to. We're going to look at it as the time of awakening. Lots and lots of people are waking up from that. So there's plenty that haven't gone through that full awakening process. They've kind of gotten stuck in the middle of it. So they're getting the negative entity attachment as this, hey, you got to finish this process. And that drives people. That negative experience is so miserable that you finally go, okay, I've got to take care of this. And that is what I'm talking about. That's that process where, oh, okay, now we're going to raise that frequency. We're going to help you discover your gifts and your mission. And now you're back on your path. So I believe that that's a major reason we're seeing more and more of that now.
Wow. Wow. And you think eventually we'll work past that once we get into 5D?
Oh yeah. That's not even an issue. I mean, yeah. And it's funny. I just had somebody today in one of my personal one-on-one clients who said, well, what happens when you encounter an entity? And I said, oh, I love when people ask this question, because I look at it like, oh, really? Like, you really think that you're going to be able to do anything to me? Really? This is going to be a blast. Let's see what you can do. Give it your best shot. Like, that's how I really look at these things. I don't teach people to protect themselves. Like you mentioned that in my little intro, right? If you put a bubble of protection around yourself, what kind of action is that? And I'm physically showing you that I feel that it's a fear-based action. Oh, I hope nothing comes inside of my little bubble. Oh no, I am doing this. I am walking with confidence and complete knowledge that not only am I protected, but I'm so powerful that these things have no chance against me. And that's essentially what I'm teaching. I want a whole bunch of people walking around like this rather than a whole bunch of people walking around like that.
That makes complete sense. Wow. So are there any cases that you've worked on with somebody where you've really had a hard time helping them get rid of their attachments? Or it's, again, we're just getting back down to them getting rid of whatever their shadow is that they're carrying around?
That's what it is. It's not about the attachment. It's about their shadow, right? And
so you never see anything physically?
No, I mean, I don't actually see them, which is kind of funny. I can detect them, but I don't have the clairvoyance to be able to see them. I just know that they're there or know that they're not. And so, but it's not and sometimes it feels like to them that they have an entity, but they don't actually have one. So it's that they're still dealing with their own shadow side, like you said, or their own traumas or their own whatever, that they have to, that becomes the challenge rather than any entity.
So what would Xane's 10-step program be to make sure that you don't ever have any entities in your life, or your 1-step program, whatever?
Right. So it is a longer program. And, we do a 7-week program where people are going through and either working together as a group or working one-on-one with me in the process. So really I'm providing a whole bunch of different tools to help them. And a lot of times we always start with, what emotional experiences are you currently having? Where do you default to? Do you default to gratitude and unconditional love on a day-to-day basis? Or do you default to frustration, disappointment, fear, anxiety, shame, unworthiness, those sorts of emotions? And so I have a whole bunch of things that we can do from an energetic standpoint. I do these activations that help reduce the experience of those negative emotions, as well as teaching them techniques on how to get themselves out of those negative emotions. And it's pretty funny because sometimes when we start off and I ask people, well, what emotion are you experiencing right now? They don't even know how to answer that question. Like they don't even know what their emotion is. And we have to dive in and start to uncover what it is, and then apply the correct technique to overcome that. And what we discover too is that, we can use these brains. These brains are the reason that this species has survived through the evolutionary experience, right? We don't have sharp claws and we don't have armor to protect us. We're soft and squishy. So the only thing we can do is use these brains, and we overthink every situation, right? You imagine all the doomsday scenarios so that you can circumnavigate them. Oh my gosh, the saber-toothed tigers. Oh my gosh, nobody's collecting enough berries. Where's the water? Blah, blah, all that. We imagine all the horrible things that are going to go wrong so that we can not die. Well, when we're doing that in today's society, where we don't have to worry about saber-toothed tigers, and all we have to do is turn on the faucet, then we are overdoing it, and we're using these brains in all the wrong ways. So what I'm doing is I'm helping people use the brain in the right way, so we can overthink about the things that we should be overthinking about rather than the things that we shouldn't be overthinking about. Once we get that practice going, then the next thing we notice is that the emotional body turns to catch up. Because if you had a negative situation happen and you had a negative emotional response to it, let's say it was a breakup, and so you feel loneliness and you feel rejection and you feel all these different negative emotions over that breakup, then you're going to go forward, and even if you think about something else, oh, I want to think about seeing my grandma again, and and the positives of that, your emotional side is still feeling the loneliness and feeling all those other things. So it's hard for you to actually feel the excitement or the gratitude or the love for your grandma. Instead, you're still feeling the previous experience, the previous emotional experience. So what we're doing is we're helping you think about more the reasons that you should be grateful, the reasons that you should have unconditional love, the reasons that you should have excitement. And sometimes people say, well, I understand that I could or should be feeling gratitude, but I don't. I'm still feeling that previous emotion. And I'm saying, be patient, because as you continue to think about those, overthink about those positive things, eventually your emotional body is going to check in with your brain and say, how should we feel? And your brain is going to say, well, I'm thinking about gratitude right now. And your emotional body goes, okay, everybody, let's do gratitude. Let's feel grateful. And so you're going to all of a sudden have that experience. But if when the emotional body checks in and says, how should we feel? And you say, well, I feel still pretty crappy over that breakup. Okay, everybody, let's feel crappy. So it is all about having consistent thoughts about all the truth, the authentic truth about your gratitude, things that you're grateful for, things that you're excited about, and things that you love. And then eventually everything catches up. So that's kind of like, I just discussed essentially week 1 of 7. So it's quite the process, but it's incredible and beautiful to see the transformation that definitely occurs.
So can you get to a point to where you really are not in any kind of a space where you're attracting that?
Yeah. And then when you do, it does happen, right? Because you have negative emotions. Someone dies and you feel grief. Do you feel grief and feel suffering because of your grief? Or do you feel grief and you say, well, this is actually healing, and I'm going to experience this grief because it's going to help me heal, rather than experience this grief and suffer as a result? Those two, that division of thought changes the entire landscape. So if you go into a suffering experience, the negative entities return, and then you recognize, oh, right, I did the suffering thing again, rather than looking at it in this way, and this way. The next thing you know, the entities are gone.
Wow. So is there such a thing as like a poltergeist experience where somebody could have shit flying around their house? Are they also generating that kind of activity?
No, they're not generating it, but they are attracting it. So again,
Okay.
it's about them. So what we're doing, it's still the same process. That's why, you were asking me, what's the difference between this, and this? Doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's all about them. And so, and in some of the time, I am actually teaching them how to remove an entity from themselves, or remove a blockage from themselves, so that you don't have to keep coming back to me. I'm not a pharmaceutical company, and I don't want you to keep coming back. I want you to come one time, and now you are your own sovereign being that can take care of any situation. So it is all about teaching all the tools that are necessary to do that. And what's great is that usually during that process, they discover their actual spiritual gifts that they specifically came here for, that are completely unique to them. And then who knows what can happen, right? Because they can go off on a new career, a new volunteer approach. Like, everything can change during that discovery process.
So is it possible for a place to be haunted? Like a place, like a physical, like let's say this house. 5 different families have moved in. They've all had crazy experiences with entities.
Sure.
Is it just the fact that they're all helping keeping that going?
Usually, yes. But that sort of thing, okay, we get into all kinds of legend and stuff, right? Like, I can't help it but step into this one because I love it. So some people go, they call me and they go, all right, well, I've done all the stuff, right? Like I put the salt on the outside of the window, and I put crystals here, and I put, in front of the doorway, and all the stuff. And I say, okay. And you still have the entity issue, right? Like, yeah, it doesn't work. Like, okay, well, have you ever thought that maybe they don't go through the window or the door, that maybe they just come through the wall, or up through the floor, or in through the ceiling, right? Like, so a lot of the stuff that we talk about are stories, and they're stories about how we feel like it should be, how it's been passed down through generations and so forth. And again, yeah, it can be any of those things. It can be that they're attached to the building. It can be that they're attached to the different people who stayed in the building. Again, I don't care. All I care about is the individual, and make sure that they are sovereign, and they recognize their strengths and their abilities and powers, and we remove those negative experiences in their past, and so on and so forth. And then it doesn't matter anymore. Then it shifts from being like, oh my gosh, there's a poltergeist thing, and there's all this crazy stuff going on, and then you go, oh cool, it's a poltergeist thing. Okay, cool. Oh, you want to move the book across the room? Yeah, that's great. I'm going to bring some people over and show them this. And and that's when you take that approach, then everything's just interesting and curious and fantastic and amazing and beautiful, which is exactly what this experience is here on this paradise planet.
Wow, I like that. I love that. So what's the most asked question that you get, Xane, about your entity practice or removal of it?
Yeah, probably, what kind do I have? And it's, it's the same thing, right? It's the same. Okay, how about this? What if I told you that it was a demon? How are you going to look at that? What if I told you that it was a butterfly entity? It's very pretty, right? How are you're going to look at that 2 completely different ways. If you decide that you have a demon, demons, as legends tell us, are more powerful than souls. So if you've got a demon that is more powerful than your freaking soul, how do you ever think you're going to get rid of it? You don't think you're ever going to. You have to go to an exorcist. You have to go to somebody else who proclaims that they're more powerful than your demon. But what's actually happening is that you're going to the exorcist because you believe that they're more powerful, and your belief makes you powerful enough that you actually remove it temporarily. But once that exorcist goes away, so does your belief that you're going to be able to do anything about it, and then it just returns. So when they ask, those are the types of questions I get all the time, and I have to train them on this, what I'm telling you right now.
So earlier you said when you looked at me and I can tell you have no entities. How do you know that?
Well, I'm sure that you work with, or you've talked to lots of people who use their intuition to let them know what's going on. It's very similar. On occasion, I will check my, do some muscle testing or something like that. But most of the time I just know.
How did you come about this gift?
It's pretty funny because my gifts really don't focus on negative entities. My gifts focus on overcoming childhood traumas and overcoming blockages, and transmuting emotional energies and that sort of thing. So it just so happened that I had a YouTube video that I posted that, I can just remove your entity, just watch this YouTube video. And I actually do the activation in the video. So anybody who watches it, they feel the difference if they had one. Well, that became so popular that now I started getting people that said, yeah, your video works, but then they come back. Or I go to an exorcist and it works, but then they come back. I didn't know what to do at that point. I'm going, all right. And so I started talking to my guides. I work with the Hathors, which is an extra dimensional collective, similar to the Pleiadians or the Arcturians. They were incarnated here on Earth during Egypt's golden age. So I work with them and talk to them and go, hey, so what do I do with these people? How can I help them? And at the time, I actually had a different type of program. It was just called Defaulting to Happy. It was an ascension program to help people with what I was saying, what my gifts were, right? So helping people transmute emotional energies and to get rid of their childhood traumas and all that. And they said, just put them in that program. So I said, all right, here you go. And it was great because the first couple of people that were in the program, a couple of weeks in, they said, when are we going to talk about negative entities? Like, well, we're not, right? Like, that's not what this is about. This is about something else. But of course it worked. They totally transcended them. And now I've modified the program to help people very specifically with entities and default to happy.
Wow, that's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
Xane, tell us how people can find you and what other kinds of things that you offer in case anyone's interested. And I will post links for Xane below as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, so XaneDaniel.com obviously is a place where you can find out most of the information. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/Xane Daniel. That's great too. I've got over 100 videos on there now, and I give activations in probably 80% of them, and they're all different types of activations, transcending those emotional experiences, helping you overcome negative thinking, and just on and on and on, unconditional love and so forth. Those are my two favorites. I also write and publish my own comic book series called Righteous, which is a story about a mass spiritual awakening. And so you can find that on righteouscomic.com. And just recently, I became the owner and CEO of Cosmic Television, which is a streaming service similar to Gaia. It's very much in its early stages. So if anybody checked it out at the time of this recording, they wouldn't find a lot of material there yet, but that's going to be coming. So we've got a plan for that. And our phase 1 will be 1 year from now. So it'll be October of 22 that we'll have a full plate of offerings that are very unique to the various amazing light workers and health practitioners that we're assembling for this. And it's cool because it's only going to be of the highest vibrational content. I don't want disclosure stuff, and I don't want negative stuff, right? Like, so what I was talking, right. So I was talking about earlier is, we use these brains to overthink all the possible problems that are going to happen, right? It's the reason that we tune in to the news. The news it's telling you all the ways that you could potentially die. Oh, there's a hurricane. Oh,
Yeah.
there's this. Oh, there's that. Right. So we glue ourselves to that because we want to survive. Like survival is still a major part of our programming, especially when we're at a basic level, right? At a 3D level. And so I actually call the news the How I Could Die show. So do you want to tune into the How I Could Die show and see more of all the ways you can die? Because when we go to Gaia or to any of the other networks or the, even, oh shoot, is it Signal that's the replacement for, I don't remember what it is, but anyway, where people are gathering and talking about all the doomsday scenarios from the spiritual side. Oh, well, the pandemic and the cure for the pandemic is going to cause blah, 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 all the conspiracy stuff, right? That's just a new version of the How I Could Die show. Yeah. So we're still tuning in to all the ways that we could die, because now all of a sudden, if you tune into the How I Could Die show, they're telling you how not to die. All you have to do is take this little inoculation and now you won't die. And people go, well, wait a minute, this is supposed to be the How I Could Die show, and since it's not telling me how to die, I don't believe it anymore. I need to find my own How I Could Die show. So they go in and they conspire about all of the things that are actually so screwed up with our government or evil CEOs or whatever, to make them, they're seeking comfort in the same way. So instead, I say, don't watch the How I Could Die show. Don't watch all the conspiracy stuff. Just enjoy your every freaking day life and be in gratitude for everything that you have. And all that stuff is supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen exactly as it's happening. So enjoy that if you want to. I don't. I just kind of ignore it for the most part and love every second that I have here on this paradise planet.
Well, we are eternal beings, and we are here to experience this earth at this time in these meat suits, exactly, and we might as well enjoy it, right?
Right, exactly right.
All right. Well, Xane, I appreciate you being on here, and I wish you the best of luck with your new network and all of your other endeavors. And I love your homage to the Hathors behind you. That's so beautiful.
Yes.
So Thank beautiful. Did you do that art?
That was kind of a paint by number. I was doing the painting and a friend of mine actually drew it. So she drew
collaborative effort.
Yes. So she drew all this and painted a lot of it. So I have like the sun on my ceiling and I have jungle scenes. The ayahuasca was my awakening catalyst. So I was when I was rattling off the different things that you might have signed up for to have here. In my case, it was a plant medicine ayahuasca. So I have some dedication to some ayahuasca motifs as well.
Yeah. Very nice. I love it. Well, you have a great rest of the day, and thank you so much for your time, sir.
Oh, yes. It was such a pleasure. Thank you, Alleson.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.